Arkansas is directed by Clark Duke and written by Clark Duke and stars quite a big cast. You got Liam Hemsworth, Clark Duke himself, Michael Kenneth Williams, Vince Vaughn, John Malkovich, and among others, and Vivica Fox. And in this film, it's set in the state of Arkansas, where trivia
We
knowledge,
live.
me and Eddie are actually from Arkansas,
No,
and,
I'm
and
not. I'm not from there. I grew up here, but yeah, it's state. It's in set in Arkansas.
yeah, and in this story, it deals with Liam Hemsworth and Clark Duke's characters, who are drug dealers working for a man only known as Frog, and basically he gets pretty much moves to Arkansas to move basically shipments back and forth to do trafficking for drugs, and they get basically orders from Vivica Fox character, who works for Frog, and they have to do various jobs in order to fall in and basically abide by the trafficking and all that. And along the way, some mishaps happen, and it basically becomes kind of a two kind of sides where you're dealing with their side, and then you also get some stuff going on with Vince Vaughn's character later down in the movie. Now, here's some backstory. Now, this is a film that is, as the title suggests, is set in the state of Arkansas, and I live in Arkansas myself, and I'm from Arkansas, born and raised, and I I've heard a lot. I actually didn't really hear much about this film before it came out because I didn't really see much of it until I saw a trailer of it, and then I heard about the cast that was involved with it, and it kind of got me interested with the kind of feel they were going on. And apparently, it's based on a book called also in Arkansas by John Brandon. And the guy who directed this, Clark Duke, I've seen him in, I've mainly known him in, see him in like other comedies that he starred in, like as a supporting guy, like Hot Tub Time Machine 1 and 2, and among some other things. And apparently, this is his first time directing as a film. And I figured from the trailer, from going into the movie, that it'd be interesting seeing a film actually set in my home state. So I got interested with it.
Yeah, I'm not from Arkansas. I did grow up here, by the way. I'm from Colorado, but I grew up. I would like to say Arkansas is possibly my other home because I've lived here the most out of any state. But anyways, getting into the movie, this was a passion project from what my understanding. Saw the trailers about this on Facebook, and um, our news station where we're from made a big deal of it because I mean it's rare that you get movies and shit made around here. So when they announced, they did a thing on our news with Clark Duke because he's from this area. He's actually um, born outside of Hot Springs, I believe, and I believe the town that this happens in is based loosely off of that. So he used his town, even though it's from a book. But anyways, getting back to the point, um, he did an interview saying this was kind of like a passion project because he always wanted to do something about his home state. And when he came across his book, it's something he's been working on, I think, for 4 to 7 years. Can't really remember the interview very well, but it was something around along those lines. So it's been a thing he's been trying to do forever. And this is his directorial debut and written debut. He's known for mainly comedies, like you stated earlier. He was a great supporting cast in Hot Tub Time Machine, and Sex Drive was another good one. He was really funny in. So I could always support somebody like him. He's kind of doing what Jonah Hill did, where he's known for just supporting cast and comedy, and then wants to get promoted into more directing and writing. I can always support that. And I'll be honest with you, with the name Arkansas, like Justin was saying, it was something when we saw the trailers, we're like, oh my god, they made a big deal about Liam Neeson and Vince Vaughn being down here and all that shit. I remember that on the
Liam
news, but
Hemsworth.
yeah, yeah, Liam Hemsworth. You don't ever talk about him much, Steven. But yeah, it was cool whenever they talked about Liam Hemsworth and Vince Vaughn being down here. It was a big deal. So I was like, you know what? The whole drug trafficking genre, while we've seen many films like this, I'm kind of intrigued to what they can do about the whole, where we live at. So, we give it a watch. And I'll say, upon saying, I saw early reviews on this, and I will say that worried at first because started hearing some bad stuff about it. And upon seeing the film, I will say, oh my god, unfortunately, it's not a. I wouldn't say it was horrible, but I will say that it wasn't that great. Um, and it's a rookie mistake in the making. Like, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, from somebody who's never written and directed a movie. But yeah, this wasn't good. There was a lot of
Yeah,
problems. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but
It's one of
again,
those.
how? Yeah, what do you think? Thought about it?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like how you mentioned Jonah Hill earlier. Like Jonah Hill actually did his directorial debut with mid '90s, which I haven't seen, but one of these days I might check that one out because I have a thing for the '90s. So it would be cool seeing that setting come to life in that movie that he does and see how it plays out. But you can see the comparisons because of how it's basically a guy who's known for a lot of comedy and stuff, doing a first time directing everything. The comparisons that are made with it are there because of a guy that's starting out as being in comedy and stuff, and then having to work his way as being a director and stuff. Some comedic actors have done that, especially Jonah Hill and even guys like James Franco and all them. So this was definitely something that, upon seeing the film, I just felt like it's a shame because being in my own hometown state and seeing a whole film finally done for my hometown state, it would home state. It would just it's disappointing because you can see the one thing I give them credit for is that it would be like if me and you made a film because of that
Yeah.
passion that we would have on making a movie. I can understand. I give credits on wanting to try to do something like this and try to make it work, but the problem is that it's a first time. It's basically like doing a student film. In that, basically, you do your first time, and then you have to pretty much learn from your mistakes. Unfortunately, I think that Clark Duke, the way that he did it with this film, unfortunately, this was a mishap that he wasn't quite ready yet to tackle something like this, as far as directing wise.
Exactly, and I think there's a lot of issues, and we'll go into a little bit about why we think, what the cons were and what some of the mistakes he kind of made. And let me get into my pros real quick. I will say that Liam Hemsworth was fine in the role. He plays like this really quiet country redneck country boy type of vibe where he doesn't really talk much. Um, he's tired of life type. He don't trust anybody, so he's
Yeah,
very himself. And I thought he played that part really well. Another one character I did like in this film was Vince Vaughn. However, there is a con to his character that kind of really bothered me. But overall, kind of like later in the third act, I thought he did fine. It wasn't his fault what I'm about to bitch about later. It's more the writing standpoint, but what he was given and what he just went with, it was decent. I will other than that, there was some pretty good violence in this film that were kind of practical, so I got to give Clark Duke on that. There was no zero fucking CGI in the film, so I got to give him credit. I again, like you were giving the guy credit, we can always respect somebody who wants to do more than being typecast as the supporting cast in raunchy comedies. And I support that 100%. And I could see where his heart was going. It just didn't execute very well in the film. But I still give him credit for it. It wasn't like atrociously bad, but he does need to learn a lot.
yeah,
And uh, other than that, there's some good soundtrack music to it. Every now and then there were some pretty watchable scenes. You might not agree. I might not agree with how the scenes intertwined because we'll get into that in the cons. But some of the scenes that played out were pretty decent, and I thought the third act, Clark Duke, for just that second you had it, the film turned pretty dark. But it's like it was there, but then you let it slip, and it was a rookie mistake. But other than that, that was all my pros I pretty much can think of.
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I like you were saying, going back to the performances, I think the biggest standouts for me, the best, surprisingly, was actually Vince Vaughn because we've talked about this previously in one of our other videos where he talked about Dragged Across Concrete. I'm glad to see Vince Vaughn is taking himself out to be a more like doing more serious type of roles and these kind of like thriller type movies, especially if you see him work with movies that he's worked in with S. Craig Zoller for movies like Dragged Across Concrete and fucking one of my favorite roles of his was Cell Block and Brawl in Cell Block 99. And so him playing this role, he kind of plays a character that's not really on reminiscent of those roles, but he's more like if you took his role and like say, well, a weird comparison, but True Detective season 2, how he's playing kind of the boss type basically and everything. And I think that for his character, it worked in a way, so to speak.
It's funny you mentioned that because I almost want to compare that because like True Detective season 2, they don't use Vince Vaughn to their biggest advantage.
Yeah.
And I think this guy can get brutal. So Block 90 or 99, whatever it was called, fucking he got brutal in that. He was a great villain in a underrated film to me called
Domestic Disturbance.
Disturbance. Thank you. That one, he was probably at his darkest ever in his entire career because he was literally playing the villain in that. And I felt like I said, True Detective season 2 and my con with this season or with this movie, they did the same thing where they don't use him to his advantage. But
yeah.
He is the villain in this film, by the way. And,
right. Yeah, and I also got to admit, I give credit to Liam Hemsworth that over the years I've come to not really like him as an actor that much in certain movies, and there's only been movies where the movie itself wasn't that good, but at least he was tolerable. And the only one I really found him was probably in Independence Day Resurgence, out of all things. And here, I actually give him more credit than kind of what he deserves because he's playing a lot more reserved type of role where he's more like quieter, like you said, and he brings what he can with the role together. And I actually didn't mind him so much in this.
Now, this movie would have been just a straight up dark thriller, drug trafficking, just rung amok fucking thing that they could have done with this film. Liam Hemsworth, the way he looked in the film, probably could have been a huge impact in a darker, grittier movie like this. In fact, Liam want to maybe try another gritty thriller. I think he would do very well if he plays that more toned down like he was with this film.
Yeah, so, and I agree. And I also got to admit that the actual locations that they end up going to in some places that are shot in Arkansas, I had some kind of like, it made me smile kind of seeing where they shot some of these locations at. So the novelty of seeing my home state and seeing various locations was kind of a plus, and being able to spot out like certain locations like in Little Rock and places like that and Pine Bluff and everything. And so the authenticness with that kind of go with the kind of rundown type of setting, it does work, but unfortunately it's not executed the way the story plays out, unfortunately. But with that being said, it was also good hearing like different covers of certain songs on the soundtrack too. That was a plus.
That was another pro I did forget. I did forget the location was really cool. If you've been to Hot Springs, Little Rock, Pine Bluff, West Memphis, which is on the Arkansas side of Tennessee, I know those places. I've been to those places, and I've recognized a lot. And I will respect Clark Duke on that. Him being an Arkansas native, he actually wanted to shoot the fucking movie in this state. So I'm actually glad he didn't venture off into Canada and say it was Arkansas.
Yeah.
Some movie, directors do. So I'll give him credit on that. But here's where we get to our cons, and I will tell you, let me start off the bat. I'm just going to go for the biggest problem, writing. This, holy crap, the writing can actually go through a lot of my cons because there's a lot of them. The writing is bad, unfortunately. I don't know what Clark Duke was trying to do. I will say that one thing, in my opinion, where he went completely fucking wrong was a lot of people have complained about this, and people are right. The fact that I can get that you're inspired by other directors and writers, and you could tell this film, he was inspired heavily by Quentin Tarantino and Pulp Fiction. There's a heavy presence of Pulp Fictionist in this film. The unfortunate thing, there's a difference between being inspired by somebody and make it your own, and then carbon copying. I'm not accusing of fully carbon copying, but at the same time, a lot of it was too damn close to Pulp Fiction to the point. I'm sorry, Clark Duke. It does come off like you were trying to really just focus on copying that movie and the structure and everything, the chapters and all that. I'm not saying, you know, you shouldn't do that in the long run. I just felt like you're new to this to even go that kind of Quentin Tarantino-esque type of route, because that's too complex for a rookie. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a dick about it, but it's blunt. I'm being blunt. I'm being truthful. It ruined the movie. I can almost say for like most of it, I'm like, he copied that from Pulp Fiction. That feels like Pulp Fiction. That's very Quentin Tarantino. That is too. Hell,
Yeah.
that song was in Pulp Fiction. I mean, it felt like you were copying this shit. Where you start out getting to know people, but then you do the chapters. Then we get the whole backstory with the villain. Then you get chapter 3 and this, and then you go back to chapter 2. You're not Quentin Tarantino. I'm not saying you'll ever be. You just got a lot to learn. So you were really wrong of overdoing that. I think that ruined the movie. It ruined your structure because you're new to it. The structure of getting character development is zero. Everything is rushed. I didn't know fucking Liam Neeson, and you starred in the film with Liam Hemsworth. You starred next to Liam Hemsworth as the star of the movies, and you both had no character development at all. Like,
Yeah.
you were just in the movie, especially at the beginning when we get introduced to Liam Hemsworth at the very beginning. There's some guy in his closet he throws him in, and then he meets that one guy, and that guy takes him to Arkansas, and we don't know what happened to the guy in the closet. We don't really ever get to see whatever happened to his friend that got him into the drug world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no development at all. We're just boom. We're giving Liam Hemsworth's character, and then you Duke comes in the movie, and you look fucking ridiculous. No offense. And you look real off with your clothing. Now the hair and the mustache is spot on, but it didn't look like it went together at all.
Well, you know that's funny, right? Because when I was watching the film after reading some kind of reviews of the movie, one person I heard actually kind of looked like a miniature version of Vince Gilligan, who created Breaking Bad. I was like, yeah, that's a really good comparison, because it seemed like Clark Duke was kind of basically taking I know it's a TV series and all, but you can kind of tell they were kind of going with a Breaking Bad style type of plot with the whole with the whole drug feel.
It tries to do that, but it also mainly sticks to very Pulp Fiction on a lot of shit.
Yeah,
very
stylized with that, with the chapters and everything. Yeah.
And then you have like the music from Pulp Fiction, not the theme, but like the classic 70s, 80s music, like playing in like the Preacher Man song.
Mm-hmm.
There's a son, Preacher Man. And you see that in Pulp Fiction. Why was this shit like this in this movie? I mean, you can tell it's a copy. I mean,
well,
come on.
I know this was going back, but it also it was kind of cool seeing Vivica A. Fox again, but because she was also it worked with Tarantino, so it was kind of kind of neat kind of seeing her in a film, but she deserves definitely a better script, because you get her in a film and you can only really have her read Tarantino's dialogue in a Tarantino film like this.
Yeah. So, anyways, going back to the writing, the structure was so off. I'm gonna be honest with you, I was lost. And every execution that you led up to the twist was very underwhelming. You can go and say, well, every twist you were trying to give me or what you were trying to put together, not only is it predictable and weak, but also there were so many holes. It looked like one big giant pile of fucking Swiss cheese. So
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there's so many holes. Like, I don't know where the fuck I'm at in this movie. And it's very hard to write a complex story. It's very rare for a direct, somebody like him can pull off something like, this big. So he should have, in my opinion, started out very calmly with the story. That's what he
Yeah,
should have done.
because the problem I think lies with that too, and that gets into some of my other cons, is that characters that come in, like you were saying, they come and go at the beginning too, and the way that the movie is trying to build upon with them pretty much moving to Arkansas and stuff and doing their deals and stuff. It's not only very on a directing standpoint, I find it very rushed because there's a lot of scenes that really just come and fucking go like drive-bys, and they don't really have much of an impact the way that it goes with the story. That's supposed to be either intenseful or either supposed to be complex the way it's supposed to play it out. And I thought that the way it was going around, you're supposed to have like scenes that might serve an impact, but unfortunately, you have lack of characterization. You have directing that really feels like, even when we get in the flashbacks with Vince Vaughn's character, it's like, you're doing all the shit that feels so rushed.
Exactly. We get to the backstory, like the character development on everybody is 0 to none. John Malkovich was just brought in and just fucking thrown out and wasted. Not to mention, I will say, upon not only is his writing was really bad, like everybody else's, but his acting was a bit off in this, especially whenever he was getting that fucking wire in his ear and stuff. He's like, like you could see it horribly forced. It's like, damn, John Malkovich, you really stooped down on this bad acting. Holy shit, would it be a comedy or? I don't get the tone, which is another issue, is the tone deaf problem. It's really tone deaf. And usually because the Pulp Fiction was able to mix comedy, action, and some bits of thriller, that worked perfectly. Again, Quentin Tarantino's a talented writer. Here's Clark Duke trying to do that, reminisce of that, and it really comes out like, I'm fucking lost, dude. Where am I at? So and then the tone is like really off, like where you have the comedy, but then we're supposed to be like worried about something. And it's like some of the lines just painful out of John's mouth, especially. And he's in and out of the film real quick. It's like, that's a waste of a talented actor. Well, he wasn't talented in this. But anyways, yeah, there's like no development. And then we get to like Vince Vaughn's character. While I did praise him, here's where I have an issue with him. His backstory to why he got where he was at was so fucking rushed. It's like, I feel no villainous with this character. Not to mention, they keep him very contained as far as what he could be, like psychotic and nuts, and just go off the walls, major drug dealer. I'm gonna tear you and your partner to fucking shreds. I'm gonna kill everybody you love. He could have done shit like that. Instead, he comes off as like he's lost. He don't even know what the fuck he's doing. And respect, this guy's the drug kingpin of the southern states, and he comes off as like I don't get the whole backstory where he's just like, I want to retire. Like that's like a lot of his lines in this movie where he wants to pass his shit off to other people. And they actually tried to do something clever where Malkovich and him were saying the same shit. And it really wasn't impressive because the execution was done poorly. And like I said, Vince Vaughn is just like mostly just sitting at his, where he's kind of semi-retired in his little kind of like pawn shop. And it's like out in the country and it's all built out of fucking logs and shit. And he's just sitting there listening to St. Louis Cardinal games. And I don't get what they were doing with him. It's like Clark Duke didn't know what to do with the villain. And that's a big problem. You don't know how to write and you can't make a fucking villain or anything. Maybe you shouldn't write or direct movies. I mean, you
probably could do a talented if you were doing more of like if you were, because this is my problem with the writing with Vince Vaughn's character as a character. He comes in basically trying to be, the guy that's trying to get, go through like the process of everything with everything's going on. And if you would have told me that this was like the same type of performance or type of level of character that he could have done with Cell Block 99, where it shows how fucking brutal he can be and maybe do some other obstacles that basically impact our other main characters, you could see how it could play out in a better movie. But unfortunately, because like you were saying, he's more subdued to where he's always back at home. and stuff and everything, it's weak, and it has really no impact whatsoever for it,
And
except for one scene toward the end that I will say, not going to spoilers, but let's just say it's the only part of the movie that actually kind of got intense, and let's just say it has to do with the way it sets it up. But it's unfortunately short lived, because in that 5 minutes alone, that's really the best part of the movie.
yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So our characters were just slim to none, and a lot of shit was not making sense where they had stuff coming in, but then like Quentin Tarantino, you have stuff going out in the past and in the present, and they're just bringing all these characters in, and just things were just so mixed up. Like there's those twins that we didn't really get to know, other than they were kind of like the henchmen, and then you have Vince Vaughn saying, just going to give you everything. I'm like, I don't get what the fuck they were trying to do with that. There's
Yeah,
a
and why would
heaviness.
he just?
Everybody wanting to retire and hand their shit over, and they're handing shit over to people they don't fucking know, which is another problem I have with our main cast members. Liam Hemsworth as a character, one little problem, and heavily with Clark Duke, is they take these two boys and they trust them drug running throughout the whole South, and something happens with a guy who pretty much works for Vince Vaughn's character, and he goes missing, and you would think, I'm a drug kingpin. One of my guys is missing, my head honcho. And I have these two kids I don't fucking know running my money, my property, and everything else. That's a fucking risk. I am not taking. And the fact that he doesn't even really go after these kids, and we get a lot of scenes where we get Liam and Clark Duke just pretty much living the life, just like nothing happened, other than a few tense scenes. And we just see body counts after body counts. I'm like, where's this movie going?
Yeah.
Where the villain at that's saying you kill, you caused this mass chaos that's got me in a bind. Fuck you, I'm gonna kill you. That's what you see in every movie. But
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything. And then it's like, huh? And then unfortunately, Clark Duke's character, which stands out like a fucking sore thumb. I'm sorry, I could not get into his character. And but anyways, when something happens, I felt no emotion at all.
I didn't either.
I was like, you're at the emotion part of the movie, and you're just not grabbing me, man. This movie was terrible. There was a lot that this could have been something huge, and it just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's very rookied, and you can tell. And I'm not saying I like Clark Duke. I do like him. And I would like to see, I think another issue goes that the film was so independently made, nobody was actually overlooking Clark Duke. So Clark Duke directed, wrote it, and there's nobody above him, like production company or other talented people saying, nah, man, you're making a rookie mistake. So there's no control. And because of that, I hear that could become an issue with rookie directors. So I'm sure that his heart and his mind was on, like, okay, I'm going to make this really gritty and brutal. Maybe an actor or an actress didn't, like Vince Vaughn probably didn't get that. Maybe you want me to be dark. So when Vince Vaughn did what he did, Clark Duke, being new at the game, probably didn't say, I need you more darker. And that's another problem is it's because he's too focused on playing the main character.
Yeah.
When you behind the camera focusing on that, you're not on that level where you could do three things at once.
Yeah.
So it comes off as so messy. It's like,
yeah, when you're doing a directing, because this is common when it comes to guys that's actors or actresses that start directing films instead of having to start with them, they seem like they can take more focus out of things. And like I said, going back to Jonah Hill, he just flat out directed the film and he didn't star in it. So when you have more time to basically stay focused on just more on what your movie is going with, I think that probably would have helped instead of him casting himself in a row instead of having to do all three things, writing, directing, and starring in it,
A lot of things, and my other last complaint would be believability. There's a lot of shit that just doesn't. I can't buy. I can buy two young kids over a drug ring and getting away with killing head honchos and nothing being done about it. I can't get into the characters just swoopily going around manipulating people. Some of the henchmen's big league people, and it just felt like it was a joke. Like it wasn't taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I just wish this film took more seriously. And this film, I mean, it doesn't. Like I said, it has potential. This could have been massive had it went to somebody that had a lot of fucking, and unfortunately didn't end up that way. Now I do support maybe Clark Duke can get some more like guidance and see what he did wrong, and that happens, and maybe the next movie he directs and writes might be really good, hopefully. But this just, you didn't hit it in your first time, and unfortunately, I'm not gonna gut you too hard for that. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this film a disaster grade in the Film Freaks meter.
Yeah, it's about what I was going for too. Was a disaster grade. It has, I give them like it's it's a first strike, but
Hey,
I at least give them credit for at least trying to do something. Because you just need to really find your talent, and you need to find your ground as far as being a writer and director, and maybe stick to some comedies, maybe down the road, and just stick with that, and just maybe just stick to more traditional comedies and just add dramatic elements with them, and you could just do stuff like that in the future and
no,
work your
man,
way up, so to speak.
I wouldn't say that. I recommend him to don't try complex stories just yet.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Build your
take things more self-contained. Like take a more
yeah,
straightforward route is what I'm trying to say.
and then build up and get and ask questions of talented people. What can I do to make this better? Because I want Clark Duke to be successful. But what I was going to say earlier, it's funny how this movie resembled a lot like Home, which we watched last time. That was our last movie. It had the same issues. The writing and everything pretty much was just destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And they both had the same fucking problems. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Fair enough. And for those of you who have also seen Arkansas, let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. And hope you guys stay safe and take care, and we'll see you later.
Later.